Hi, everyone. It's Andrew with the Market Mindset. Today, we're going to be speaking about uranium, more about uranium. It had such a great year. We're going to be talking with Keith Bodnarchuk, who is the president, CEO, and director over at Cosa Resources, which is a uranium exploration company in northern Saskatchewan, the Athabasca Basin. Their portfolio comprises about 200,000 hectares of projects. And what's really impressive about this is two things. One, a very unique thesis, and that's something we always like. So we're going to hopefully have Keith explore that and explain that thesis to us. But also, it's the fact that they're an award-winning team. Many of the members won the Annie Colin Spence Award for their previous involvement with ISO Energy and their hurricane deposit. Now, notwithstanding, Keith as well worked at ISO Energy as well as at Denison Mines at one point. So let's go check in with Keith. Let's learn a little bit about uranium and what lies ahead for 2024. So Keith, good to meet you. How are you? And it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm doing very good, Andrew. It's great to be here.
Great. And you just had some news out as well, just before I started this interview as well. So news out about a bought deal here. Maybe I'll let you kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, certainly. So we did announce a $5 million bought deal led by Haywood Securities out of Vancouver here. With this financing, it really set us up to be funded all the way through 2024 and beyond. And I think we can kind of get into the specifics of the company in a little bit, but I think it really sets us up because we have had a lot of recent transactions and we've had a lot of good target generation on our Ursa property. So there is a lot of work for us to do. And, with the current price of uranium, it makes a lot of sense for us to start aggressively exploring. And that's exactly what we intend on doing throughout the entirety of 2024.
Yeah, I mean, you had 2023 was pretty fantastic. You had a great year, which is good sales to go by as well, starting into 2024. So we wanted to talk to you because people are finally coming around to the notion of nuclear and that being really the bedrock baseload energy source if we're going to be serious about the future. But we run into problems with supply demand exceptionally quick. And COSA gives us a number of things, which I'd mentioned in the beginning, was a very interesting, compelling thesis, which we always like, and
Right.
a very big time management team, an award-winning management team, which is also something you want to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think, with our management team and our track record of success, specifically in exploration in the Athabasca Basin, we've been able to deliver a lot of value even during a bear market. You've seen that through obviously our results at ISO Energy. We've had ties back to NextGen and Denison Mines. So, really we do have that track record of making discoveries and ultimately delivering value even during tougher times in the uranium sector.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I saw you on a panel as well, and people sometimes might think, that mining is cutthroat or this and that. Like, no, everyone really gets along, and it's like a weird family because everyone's worked for someone. You all know each other very well. Sometimes even like they're in the deals with you, and it's nice to see where it's like there's like where your competitors really have a vested interest in you doing well as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. I think, there's room for all of us to be very successful during this uranium bull market. And, I'm a sum of parts of all of my past employers where I've been working with tremendous people and I continue to work with absolutely tremendous people, whether great geologists at Denison Mines, a fantastic team at ISO Energy, which is my current team at COSA. So, I mean, yeah, there's room for all of us to be very successful in this uranium bull market. And, it's a great time to be exploring specifically in the Athabasca Basin.
Yeah, and that's where I kind of want to jump in because people tend to like to look at, okay, let's look at the Camecos, the producers. There's not a ton of producers right off the bat. And then, okay, what's a near-term producer and what will be the next fastest one? And without having to go too far, everyone kind of knows there's Kazakhstan and then there's Athabasca Basin.
Right.
And when you're Athabasca Basin, some people might know a little bit more, but what's compelling about your thesis is that it's different. And it's severely underexplored amongst others, and this being the Ursa project. And I think you've got 7 or 8 projects in total.
Yeah, I could touch on a bit of the projects, but it's important to always have that pipeline of opportunities and exploration. Like we've always taken the mentality of drill it and kill it and move on until we ultimately make that discovery. We do have the entire ISO Energy discovery team back together again, and obviously when we hit that high grade domain at the hurricane zone, our stock went from 40 cents to over $6. So it really goes to show that if you are able to have that discovery success, and that's really that success with the drill bit, it can really create a significant amount of value. And it's important to remember that ISO Energy, we did have very early success, but it was our 7th project where we ultimately found the hurricane zone. So you have to flip through them. You have to continue to test target areas, but also, kill them off and move on to that next target. And with our group, I think, being involved in multiple discoveries, one thing we've gotten for that is efficiency. We're a lot more efficient than even we were during past companies. And, we know exactly what we're looking for. And importantly, we know when we're not close to something. So we'll move on to the next area.
That discipline is, I mean, it's hard, especially if someone, people get married to an idea like, oh, listen, we know something's there. We're just going to keep focusing on it. And that does take a level of discipline. If you say, listen, we had a thesis here with this one project with one target, didn't work out, move along. It's very tough to have that discipline.
It definitely is. And I think, I started off as an exploration geologist myself, so I can relate to the amount of effort that's required to be put into a thesis. And when it doesn't work out, it can be disappointing, but the ultimate goal is that discovery. And, you have to maintain that focus. Otherwise you won't make that discovery, and you have to move on from projects when they aren't yielding the results you want.
And now it goes without saying, Ursa is kind of number 1 on the list now, but once again, as work progresses, you don't know, maybe another project leaps into the forefront because of better results or better assays, whatever comes in as information comes in. But right now it's kind of Titan number 2. Is that kind of the idea, Aurora?
Yeah, and so I'd say our top 3 would be Ursa, followed by Orion, which is Titan, what Titan used to be called, and then Aurora. And so those are our top 3 priorities. The important thing, though, is we're always looking to upgrade 4 through 6, right? We're always continuing to look to add to that pipeline. And, our focus will be drilling Ursa throughout 2024. There's some absolutely fantastic targets on there. And I think, the geophysics we put out last, I believe, September, really showed that our thesis has been correct thus far on what we see in that project. And I think there's a fantastic opportunity there. But importantly, in the background, we'll continue target generation on both Orion and Aurora to really set ourselves up for future drill programs on those projects too.
So walk me through, say, with Ursa, sorry. Not to get too technical, because we don't have a lot of geos that watch, but what you saw with this land package, why you wanted this area as well, and that kind of thesis. And we'll walk through mainly Ursa, and maybe we'll talk about 1 or 2 of the other ones as well. But the Ursa one, I certainly, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So simply put, locally, it's very difficult to find these deposits. There's probably been 6 significant discoveries in the past 20 years or so. But regionally, there's a pattern to them, almost this string of pearls where you can map down from MacArthur River past Denison's Griffin Phoenix all the way down to Key Lake. And we call these uranium corridors. And so our chairman, Steve Blower, who has a tremendous track record of discovery, said, in order to set ourselves up best for success, let's get as much ground as we can within these interpreted corridors. And then another thing we also started to factor in is the east side of the Athabasca Basin is fantastic. It's where all the uranium, where all the current mines are, where all the current mills are, but it's starting to be extensively explored. It has been pincushion in a lot of areas. So we thought to ourselves, where could that next great district be, where there's a lot of space for those elephant-sized deposits? Obviously, NextGen and Fission are having tremendous success on the west side of the basin, but where can that next great district be? And we thought to ourselves, we have to head deeper into the basin, to that Cable Bay Shear Zone, which is that next great northeastern trend, which is an analog to the Great MacArthur River trend. It just hasn't seen that extensive amount of exploration. And, a big part of that was because it was held by Orano, the French government, until around 2013. So all during the last uranium cycle, it was held by a major, and it really only saw exploration in the 90s. And a good way to look at that is that in the 90s, you could drill deeper than your geophysics could target. And so I think people kept doing geophysics, and they would try and prove their target, and they could never prove it. And so what's happened is technology's advanced a significant amount in the past 30 years. So we knew when we looked at it, we're like, okay, this area needs some modern exploration. But when we also started to look at the past drilling, there's only been 15 holes in the entire 60-kilometer trend. We started to realize there has been some uranium mineralization that was intersected. 0.2% over 0.2 meters, which isn't a huge amount in the Athabasca Basin, but that shows us that it is a fertile trend. There was uranium fluids going through the area, And that's often how these monster deposits start to show themselves. You have a little bit of smoke along that line, and then it could eventually lead to that massive deposit. It's how we were able to find Hurricane at ISO Energy. You know, it led the group to Griffin at Denison. So, you know, this started to tick all those boxes of what we looked for. And that's why we're really excited about it. And, you know, when we released those results, we defined 10 key target areas on that project. And we're excited to get drilling those here in the next month. And so, yeah, it's exciting times for us.
And that 5 million that you just announced, that goes right into the ground right away, pretty much.
Yeah, and so you know what, we finished December with 5 million in the bank. So we are funded for this winter program even without this additional raise. But you know, with the addition of these extra projects and with those 10 target areas that we defined, you know, we do have lots of work ahead of us. So yes, this bought deal put us in a great position. Now we'll be fully cashed up through 2024 and beyond.
And it's interesting with this, there's a lot more eyes on this, and people still don't really understand the supply demand urgency. I mean, there's going to be, you know, with I think Kazatomprom decreased their production rates by 17%. There's talk of Cameco. I think they might bring on more that they kind of put on care and maintenance, but that's without considering, I'll say, a pledge by the U.S. and Canada to say we're going to triple our nuclear power. Well, that's a startling amount of uranium that would be required to be found and to be supplied. Yeah,
no, for sure. And I think the reality of what's happening with uranium is now it's not something where supply and demand is having an issue in the future. It's happening right now, and it has been happening for years, right? And that's why you saw the spot price do what it's done. And people keep asking, what's the incentive price to bring all these projects online or uranium to flood the market? It doesn't matter. There's not enough uranium that's currently available. There's not enough projects that can come online quick enough to meet that demand. And so that's why you're seeing these crazy balances in the price where they're moving up dollar amounts just based off small uranium orders. And so that's where it's interesting, because that incentive price, it doesn't matter, right? The supply is not going to be able to come online for years where it could even meet the current demand. And then when you factor in, like you said, the future demand, then, you know, obviously Cameco saying Cigar Lake, they're going to extend the life there. That's great. We need those pounds. And you want, you know, the next gens to come online because we're going to need all those pounds, and just in order to even come close to meeting the demand. And so, you know what, I consider that good news actually, that Cameco is going to extend the life, because, you know, it is a market that needs those uranium pounds.
Yeah, and the amount of work it's going to need to put this in place, to get the amount of reactors, everything, it's going to take a lot of infrastructure, a lot of muscle. But I mean, luckily, whether it's the US or Canada, both sides of the table, they're in favor of it for maybe possibly different reasons. Doesn't really matter. So we're going to see that the natural partner to any US nuclear reactor would be a Canadian source of uranium. Never mind the fact that Cameco buying Westinghouse. I mean, now they're in the business of making reactors now as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's why that geopolitical aspect has been talked about so much, because, you know, uranium is such a strategic metal, right? It's something that keeps your lights on. It's your electrical grid. So the US cannot risk sourcing it from Russia in those places. That's why there's going to be such a premium paid on Canadian uranium in order to keep it in their stockpiles. And so, yeah, I think there's a great relationship that's forming there. And also Europe too. Like France is still reliant on a lot of Canadian uranium and things like that. So I think as other jurisdictions continue to deploy reactors, I mean, you're seeing Canada that's going to do it ourselves. I think it's really going to put a premium on Canadian uranium. And, you know, like I said, we need all this supply to come online. So I think it's positive news when you see Cameco willing to do that. And obviously NextGen progressing and Denison. This is all positive news out of Canada.
And it's a good opportunity for investors too, because even I have people, they look, they go, oh, you know, Cameco's done so well over the past year. Like, what should I be looking at? I say, well, typically what happens, it kind of trickles down when people realize, okay, the producers have this much to grow. Then people start looking for, okay, who's a really near-term producer? Okay, and who also is going to be feeding that system, and how fast can they feed that system? Is it in a safe jurisdiction? All these things. And you guys hit so many boxes. And your stock's already on the move. I mean, you had a fantastic year last year. What are some of the things for 2024 that someone should be looking for to see, hey, if you meet those milestones, and kind of gives them a sense of like the momentum of what's happening?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, you know, we are, like I said, a new company, but we're led by a team with a tremendous track record of discovery. And what you saw is, last year, we kind of started to pull the cover off this thing and got more attention on it. And then our share price, was around 20 cents, and now it's up over 50 cents. And, the biggest catalyst for us, which it's always been with our team, is drilling. And we're about to start drilling here in the next month, and we'll be aggressively drilling throughout the entirety of 2024. And we're in a somewhat unique position in the fact that we're sitting in that 30 million, 25 million valuation.
Yes.
And that's where the investments haven't trickled down to yet. Last time uranium was $100, a lot of junior companies are worth $90 to $100 million. And so you mix that in with our team's track record and that we will be drilling, and we have this tightly held share structure, and we're kind of in that undervalued range. I think it's really going to make for a great 2024 for us.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that the fact that you've got like a clean new vehicle and shell. I mean, it's brand new, not a lot of shares out.
Yeah.
And people, if they just do a little research, you can see how exciting this area is. This thesis is that it's like, well, it's like treasure hunting or gold hunting, but
For sure it is. Yeah.
you don't have to wait for the assays. The thing is, I mean, it's a lot quicker response time rather than, oh, we think we've done a good drill program, let's wait for 6 months to see what the results are.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's as a former exploration geologist, it made it a lot easier to identify when you could just put the scintillometer up to the core and it tells you whether you have uranium or not, versus the exploration geologists in gold that have to wait for the assays. So it did always make our job easier, and it also led to a lot of excitement. So you could actually see real-time results right away.
So, like you said, you're hitting the ground here. What should we, I mean, PDAC's coming up, so I'm sure you're gonna have a very busy time there.
Yeah.
What should someone be looking for? What are you hoping, like, once you've got your targets, you're gonna be drilling? Which time frame should people be keeping an eye on you?
Yeah, so a lot of news flow here over the next few weeks. We will update the market on our drill program, and you should see that our drill program starting here in the next few weeks. So we'll continue to update the market as we continue to drill. And importantly, what we're doing now is we're mobilizing in a lot of the gear for the summer. And so there won't be a big break between our winter and summer programs, and then we'll hit the ground running again in the summer. So lots of news flow over the next, 6 to 8 months. And, we continue to look for value accretive acquisitions. We'll always continue to do that to make sure we're upgrading that pipeline. And so keep an eye out for stuff like that too.
Excellent. Well, Keith, thanks so much for joining us. We're excited about, I mean, the years ahead. I mean, people say, well, it's different. It's very different than 2008.
Sure.
The world has kind of come around and have recognized, maybe you would even say too late, what they should have been doing years ago, and building the supply up and this kind of, infrastructure to get the energy going. But maybe, we're here now, and hopefully we'll have governments on our side to really push this process through and get this thing going well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great to be on here, and I agree. It's an exciting time for uranium and a really exciting time for Saskatchewan and the Athabasca Basin. There's a lot of good stories developing there, and I think Cosa is positioned with a bit of a unique story ourselves. So looking forward to updating the market here over the course of 2024.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on that for sure. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks so much.